I was a little late to the draw on letting this. It's another installment of Ash Wednesday. It's one of the rare instances where we pre-tape anything, so I don't know if it's going to be an Ash Tuesday or Thursday. But I have a couple of Brazilians here today. A little disappointed because they're men. When I heard we had two.
Are you assuming my gender?
Sorry, I did. I was just sorely disappointed. I heard two Brazilians coming into the studio. No, but you do okay. You're like a 6.5.
Okay.
So it's, of course, you've seen them on the show, Mr. Paulo Figueiredo. I mean, yeah, Paulo Figueiredo, Filho always have it, but I've always said Paulo Figueiredo.
Filho just means junior.
Okay, all right. Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was there was this one time. I was working actually with the Trump organization, and they did a background check and said, well, your name is Filho. I see there's another guy on the company that's Filho as well. Mm-hmm. Are you related? And Donald Trump Jr. asked me that question. I said, well, are you related to Robert Downey Jr.? This is like his junior.
Did he get it?
He got
or was
it.
he like,
no? No,
he took it very seriously.
He's smart.
So you can follow, of course, Paulo on X. He has a couple of X's right now, and of course his show is here on Rumble. What are the X handles?
It's at Real P Figueiredo, my last name.
Okay.
Figueiredo.
And if you're watching, that's on screen. And of course, his good friend here. Well, I know it's Allan dos Santos. I'm trying to look for the X, but Allan, what's your X?
Allan L. D. Santos.
Okay. And you're here. I have to get this out. I want to make sure people know where to find you because they've seen you on the show, and a lot of Americans are fascinated because I come from, I was raised in Canada, and I always see Americans talking about Canadian politics, and they don't know what they're talking about. I don't expect them to, right? It's a different system. It's a parliamentary system. And the same thing with Brazilian politics. It intrigues me. I don't fully understand the ins and outs, but I do recognize fascism when I see it. I do recognize censorship when I see it and see a parallel in a country that, with the United States. And you've been on the show to talk about that a couple of times. But what is it if before we move on, because some Americans, they'll go, I'm not Brazilian, it doesn't affect me. Tell them, what is the most important key fact you think that Americans need to know in how it relates to Brazil and how that actually directly relates to Americans at home?
I think there are two main points that you can see. The first one is how similar Brazil is to the U.S. culturally. We have the same political system. We're supposedly a democratic republic. You can argue a little bit on that, but we have we grew up watching U.S. movies. We consume the same products. Most U.S. companies are in Brazil, and they're very successful in Brazil. We dress out the same way. We're better in jiu-jitsu, but other than that...
We'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it. All the medals.
But that's we're very similar. And because of that, we work as a lab for the crazy ideas that come up in the U.S. universities. They're tested in Brazil. Mm-hmm. So we're a lab for crazy ideas. And I think a lot of the things that happens in Brazil are similar to what's happening in the United States. So you can look into Brazil and see a little bit of what's the outcome of these crazy ideas that some people are defending in the U.S.
Right.
So that's one side of it.
And for people who don't know, people who haven't seen you on the show before, obviously as a journalist who was censored, it's something that's a warning that people should heed. For people who don't know of your background, we'll make sure that you have the link in the description, but that's kind of how you came to be, I don't want to say more popular, but the more they try and silence you, the more people know who you are.
True. And on that, you can talk about the censorship that's ongoing in the U.S. It's going through the deep state, like putting pressure on the White House, putting pressure on social media company, and the social media companies coming up with, we all know what's going on YouTube and not on X anymore, but on other companies as well, like Meta and Facebook and whatever. That's the same thing that's happening in Brazil. But the other side of it, Brazil is so important, it's from a geopolitical perspective.
Yeah.
Because, Brazil is, and I can say that without fear, that it's the most important country from a geopolitical perspective on the Southern Hemisphere. And the reason I tell you this is, obviously, if you control Brazil controls completely the whole coast on the Atlantic South Ocean, which is fairly important. Mm-hmm. But not only that, if you go to war, you need four things. You need people to build an army.
Yep.
You need food to feed this army. You need iron to produce the war machines, and you need energy to power the war machines.
Yeah.
And Brazil's the number 3 or 4th largest food producer in the world. Brazil is 5th largest population in the world. Brazil is the number 2 iron ore producer in the world.
Right.
And Brazil has more energy than most OPEC countries, some of them combined.
Yeah.
So from a geopolitical perspective, the fact that Brazil is shifting towards China should be very concerning to the U.S., to Americans.
Yeah.
And the fact that the left is dominating Brazil and the right barely talks about it.
Yeah.
The U.S. conservatives, I think it should be a concern.
Which is always kind of surprising to me, because especially during that time of Bolsonaro, to not see Americans understand what they had at that moment in time. And, it's no big secret that I have quite a few friends in my close circle who are Brazilian, especially coming from, a background having done jiu-jitsu. So I was a little bit more in tune with it. But I thought, okay, there's one other place where there seems to be this at least sprouting of freedom that people understand. And so when I saw that change with Lula, I didn't know all the ins and outs, but was really disappointing, was really disheartening to see, because you're going, I thought they were about to get it right. And I don't want you to let you hog the whole spotlight. Allan dos Santos, you obviously were an early backer to supporter of Bolsonaro there, and you guys have both been involved with, there's so many stories. So you guys tell me where you want me to go with this. You've been in American jail, you were telling me, Paulo?
Yeah.
Yeah. You haven't been in jail, right?
No,
Not yet.
Good. I don't imagine you would fare well in jail. Like, unless you were managing the library like Brooks and Shawshank, come on, you better find the biggest guy and make nice with him. But what do you think is the most important for Americans to understand?
Yeah, so I would like to go back a little bit in history. When Walt Disney was facing a strike, I think it was the first strike, strongest one. Mm-hmm. He had a deal with Bank of America to recover his money and do more movies. And he had a mission in South America. And this is you can watch it on Disney Plus. This is not hidden. The ABC countries.
Right.
He had a mission to go to South America and spread anti-Nazi propaganda.
That's when he came up with Jose Carioca, right?
Yeah, exactly. So.
Wait, anti-Nazi propaganda?
Yeah, anti-Nazi propaganda.
Well, we're anti-Nazi. Right? We're all anti-Nazi. Anti-Nazi propaganda.
No. He was. Doing not against the Nazi, but doing the anti-Nazi propaganda.
Right. Yes.
Then the word propaganda in English has a bad connotation.
Yeah, it has a bad connotation. We're like, well,
okay. Yeah, so
it's not propaganda. If someone's saying Nazis are bad, it's like, it's not all propaganda.
But it's because the word propaganda in Portuguese it means to propagate an idea.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why he's coming.
Which is kind of ironic, because, I don't know if you know this, that Walt Disney didn't like the Jews. So I'm imagining that they weren't in charge of Bank of America yet. Mm-hmm. Okay. But
So he went to South America to do this job in the name of the United States with Argentina, Chile, and Brazil. So Brazil was very important back then, because they knew that if you conquer Brazil, why are you fighting against Cuba? Like what Cuba means in comparison with Brazil? If you won Brazil, for example, Chinese and Russian and Chinese army, if they won Brazil, they have Venezuela and Cuba and the drugs and everything that you can ever imagine. And even a war against the United States would be easier for them if they have Brazil. Because South America is basically Brazil. Brazil is the biggest country. Brazil is bigger than the United States.
There are going to be some people who will take umbrage with that, namely South Americans not from Brazil. That man just say we're basically Brazil?
It means 60% of the South America continent.
The size of the country.
Territory.
Right, yeah. Plus, who cares about the Peruvians?
I love ceviche. What are you talking about?
Yeah, all right, okay, fine. Yeah, it took a genius to say, let's not cook it.
But so the size. So
a lot of Japanese influence. It's not even
that's
them.
the counts were coming over.
Yes.
Sorry. By the way, I don't mean to be distracted. This cigar blew up on me, so I'll be the only one not having a cigar here. It's looks like a cartoon cigar, but okay. So
anyway, Brazil was an important piece for America for a long time. Mm-hmm. After.
Oh yeah, you know what? I will. You only smoke cigarettes.
Yeah,
so
I don't. Yeah, I smoke cigarettes.
It's okay. You'll die young, but you know.
He'll die free.
Yes, yes, he will.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And let us see who is that first.
I would bet on death.
But anyway, so this is the point. When America was starting being conquered by all the leftists, even the bureaucracy in the United States, even the politician, when the United States started becoming more blue and less red, Brazil was important only for the left.
And why is that?
Because they needed to use Brazil, as Paulo said, as a lab and an ally. For example, BRICS. BRICS is an organization. B for Brazil, R for Russia, U.
I for India.
I for India.
C for
China, and S for South Africa. And their goal is to destroy a U.S. dollar.
Right.
So for the left, Brazil is very important. They want to destroy the United States through Brazil.
Right.
So if the patriot Americans,
I think there's an important point to be made. So that the difference on foreign policy between conservatives and leftists.
Yeah.
So the leftists always had this big concern with their international community, right? So the globalists are pretty much leftists.
Sure. Yeah.
The conservatives in the U.S., they always had this tension between the non-interventionists or isolationists and the interventionists. So you have this tension of one side you have the crazy neocons like let's export democracy to Iraq and right.
Just saying the word sounds so silly, doesn't it? Like let's export.
Yes.
You know where they want democracy? Iraq.
Right. And on the other side you have people say America first, but some people I'm all for America first.
Sure.
But some people mean American only.
Exactly.
And the world is like a not a beautiful place. So if America is not there, someone else will be.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I think the conservatives in the United States are concerned with the United States.
Right.
The left is well connected everywhere.
Right.
So they do have an actual network, and I guess that goes to what he was saying.
Yeah. So the leftists know they really know how important Brazil is to destroy the United States. So that should be the most concern for American people.
Yeah.
Understanding how it is important to see what they do in Brazil and how the bad things develop in Brazil. Like, for example, the health care in the United States. The leftists here, they sell an idea that if the health insurance could be only public, like public schools, that would work. So go to Brazil, you're gonna see how up it is.
Yes.
You know, like
that's what happened with Canada. With me, the first
Canada. I think Canada is the best example for that.
And Michael Moore. Well, Michael Moore said that Cuba had a better healthcare system, but he's a dumb fat.
That was actual propaganda.
Yes, no, it absolutely was.
That was propaganda.
Of course it was, and he bought into it. And so my first investigative piece, I was with a company called PJTV in LA, and I said, this was before you even had access to hidden cameras. I said, I know the hospitals I went to and the clinics, so I just took it, and it was like, an old camera in a hat.
Really?
Yeah. And I went undercover.
Like Homer Simpson.
It was ridiculous, and I just showed people like, broken arm. We waited for, I think it was 8 or 9 hours in an emergency room, and no one saw us. They to get penicillin, you would be days.
It's
to
like
get a
Brazil.
blood test, 3 years to get a family doctor because there weren't enough doctors. And then I was accused of propaganda, so I followed it up. So people, and now it's since basically collapsed where they've conceded it in Canada, which is interesting that you say, not to misquote you, but that Brazil is in some ways a petri dish testing some of these ideas.
Yeah.
That's very much what Canada is. That's how I saw it because it's so similar to the United States.
Yep.
It's basically, it's basically America light, and you see it not work there, and I'll see Americans praise it, and you see that now with the left praising, the recent election and your leadership now in Brazil. How close do you think the left is right now? We know historically how important it is, but at this moment in time, the left is to tipping Brazil, and does that cause other dominoes to fall?
Oh, I can absolutely say that Lula wouldn't be president of Brazil. Communist Lula, the current president of Brazil, he wouldn't be president if it wasn't for the U.S. left. And I mean that's hard to dispute.
Right.
On the point that, well, for example, Lula won the election. That's what we were told, that he won the election. And we have all the problems with the Brazilian electoral system. If you think in the U.S. is bad, Brazil is way worse.
Well, I can imagine.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's fully electronic. So 100% electronic with no paper trail. Second, everything is decided by a centralized federal court, which is the Superior Electoral Court.
Yeah.
The man who was in charge of this court was Bolsonaro's sworn enemy, de Moraes.
Right.
The justice, the bald guy, looks like a James Bond villain.
Yes.
Right? Or Voldemort, as Elon Musk likes to say. And that's bad enough. But one of the things that they were able to make was completely censored conservative speech since, I don't know, 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially in 2022, completely. And the way they started doing that is like, for example, we have access to public documents showing meetings between the technicians from this electoral court meeting with FBI agents, FBI, U.S., United States FBI agents, where they were not CIA, FBI, where they were teaching them how to, quote unquote, combat disinformation.
Right.
So everything that was done behind the scenes here, and we didn't know in the U.S., like the Hunter Biden laptop, it was being hidden while they sent FBI agents to talk to them to not publish the story that would probably, in Brazil, that was done by a court order. So the stories were being censored by the order of the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the land. Right. So all that framework came from the United States. The theoretical framework to come up with, to justify all that was the Atlantic Council with a U.S. NGO funded by George Soros, was the one in Brazil working with them. George Soros funded most of the initiatives in Brazil that censored conservatives and worked with the Superior Electoral Court to censor conservatives in Brazil. So you have the deep state and U.S. NGOs, and George Soros is like a conspiracy theory, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
No,
but that's a fact.
Right.
And you had, at one point, you had the Biden administration openly working to make sure no one disputed the electoral results in Brazil. And so if you think...
They did the same thing here with big tech.
If you at home think I'm crazy, just look at the Financial Times article. They have an article bragging about how the U.S., the discreet campaign to save Brazilian elections, they brag about it. The fact that the U.S. sent the CIA director, William Burns, the chief of the Southern Command, the general's chief of the Southern Command, the Jake Sullivan, to put pressure on Brazilian public officials and even military leaders to not challenge the electoral results in Brazil. So what I'm saying is, and even I talked to a lot of military leaders during the election, and they actually said, if we challenge the elections, the Americans will sanction us and that will destroy our country. So we can't challenge them.
Right.
So, and that's the only reason why, not the only reason, but the main reason why we have a dictator in Brazil that's able to do whatever he wants, because he has support of the U.S. left.
There is a silver lining. Brazil, South American country. At least you have electronics in Brazil.
Electronics?
Yeah, your whole elections are rigged, electronically. But at least you have computers in Brazil.
We know the results. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A lot of countries right around cannot claim the same.
Well, you don't want our computers.
No,
you don't.
Does it fill up a whole room?
Yeah, like mainframes.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we don't know because they're secret. The electoral computers are secret. Like all the election is counted in a secret computer. Secret. They call it the secret room. Am I? No, it's true, right? All the elections is counted in a secret room that only a handful of people have access to.
And the truth is, you can't know the result.
Of course.
In other words, you're saying that's what we were told, but it's a legitimate thing to say because there's really no way of knowing.
No, before the result, how can you prove that your vote is
counted?
Is really the vote they are counting?
Right. There is no way.
There is no way.
And that's a good example of a parallel to the United States, that's what the left would have here in the U.S.
They wanted to. They had a bill, and
They still want to.
They still want to. Yeah, a fully centralized and electronic system that's federalized. That's their dream come true, and it happens in Brazil.
Right.
And right now we have it's like the probably half of the Brazilian population, including, that's an actual number, 82% of Bolsonaro voters think the election was stolen.
Right.
82%, and all these people are being silenced. I'm talking about a country that has 220 million people.
Right.
Half of them voted for Bolsonaro, half of them voted for Lula.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Right.
82% of people that say they voted for Bolsonaro say, we think the election was stolen. And these people can't say it. Because in the U.S., because of First Amendment, thank God, I can wear a shirt saying the election was stolen. I can sell a shirt saying the election was stolen.
Just not on YouTube.
Not on YouTube,
Right.
Of course. But you can say it. You don't go to prison. If you say that in Brazil, you will go to prison.
Why did you go to prison?
So I went to prison, to the U.S. Prison for a different reason. I
Wasn't rape.
No.
And you weren't raped.
I was not.
Okay.
Not that I know.
As far as
What
I
happens
know,
in prison?
I drank a lot when I was young. So
as far as
I
I
used
know,
to drink a lot, so maybe I was. No, it was a complete different issue. I was on real estate in Brazil.
Right.
And I partnered up with the Trump organization to develop a hotel in Rio.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a Trump Hotel Rio. And that was in we started a partnership in 2012. In 2016, the 2 days after Donald Trump won the election in the U.S., the Brazilian Department of Justice opened an investigation against all assets that Donald Trump was related to in Brazil.
Ugh.
It's like 2 days after.
Yeah.
And because of that, I was the CEO of one of the companies, and they arrested me, and they openly said, "Oh, we don't care about you. Although it's good that you come from a known family name, so we bring attention to the case.
Right.
You don't need to go through this. Give us anything on Donald Trump, and we'll let you go free."
Right.
But I was living here in the U.S. already. So I said, yeah, screw you. I don't have anything against Donald Trump. It's like, they didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And so they issued the arrest warrant. I got to spend 9 months or eight and a half months on the Interpol Red Notice list. When they did that, I was in the U.S. waiting for my green card, and I was under a journalist visa still. They canceled my U.S. visa. And the ICE said, well, now you're here in this country illegally.
Man, who cares though? They allow terrorists to be here illegally.
That was in the Trump administration.
Oh,
so they still used to
rule of law and whatever.
Yeah. So they said, well, so the ICE rang the doorbell of my house, and they took me, they arrested me, and I spent 17 days in Chrome in Miami. So, yeah. So
How was that?
That was probably one of the best things that happened in my life. I really enjoy being raped. No, it's like
Breaking Bad.
right.
Some people do. I mean,
Yeah,
look, this is
like-
I wouldn't say this is a judgment-free zone, but you have my
Come on,
curiosity. Had you been doing jiu-jitsu before jail?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know if it really works when someone
That was
sharpens
fun.
a.
You know what?
toothbrush.
What happened then was that I had my name, and I come from a very traditional family in Brazil. So I'm a grandson of a president.
Right.
So I had my name on all the shows, like CBS Evening News, saying, well, the grandson of the former president was arrested for corruption, for being associated with Donald Trump. He was just arrested in Miami. And so it's like, I had my name in all the newspapers as like being corrupt.
Right.
It's like, and I was like, okay. Well, just so people know in the House, by the end of the case, it terminated the case against me. They said I was completely bullshit and I shouldn't be charged since the beginning. But
It doesn't matter. They accomplished what they set out to damage your reputation.
Exactly.
They want us to ensure that people don't trust you as a journalist going forward,
Exactly.
and they felt like they accomplished that. Doesn't matter if it sticks.
But that's the best thing that can happen to you.
Right.
Because then you stop thinking about your reputation and just don't care anymore. And you see, well, is this the worst thing that can do to me? I was at the end of the 17 days in prison. I swear to you, I was friends of everyone inside.
Oh, really?
Yes, I was clapped when I was leaving, like people crying.
What did you do?
That's
what I was going to say. That's not normal. It's one thing if, like, you managed to keep your
13 or
it doesn't matter.
What are you doing in Vegas? Stay in Vegas? What are you doing in prison?
I was going to say, if they're clapping for you leaving, that means they're going to miss you. You're going to get some phone calls when they get out.
Oh, I made some friends. Yeah, believe it or not, the son-in-law of a former president of Egypt was in prison with me.
Oh, really?
Yes. And it was the guy was put in the red notice because of the Muslim Brotherhood that put his name on the red notice, and he was living in the U.S. And because the Trump administration had this very stupid policy of arresting everyone that was on the red notice to be deported. It was like, you don't know how weaponized the red notice is. I think he should suspect right now because the Iran tried to put Donald Trump on the red notice.
Right, yeah.
And red notice works like the government just put your name in there and that's it, period.
Mm-hmm.
So people need to understand that. I mean, they don't need to prove anything.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they vet and approve of actual ISIS terrorists who are coming here through their CPP system in the United States. That was the craziest thing when you looked at these terrorists who were caught in the United States, illegal immigrants. They were already vetted and approved. So it's not like it's a thorough process, or they can't claim it's a thorough process, and they can't claim that it was an honest mistake, because it just seems to be based on the political points of view of the people who end up there. Like, you can't accidentally, oh, sorry, some ISIS terrorists got through, like 8, and sorry, accidentally, this guy goes in. Well, at a certain point, it all adds up.
It does. But it was, he changed me completely as a person, and I do believe God makes that like as part of his plans. And to me, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I when I was able to get out of course, 17 days awful. I have 2 small kids, and they were babies back then.
Yeah.
And but when I left, I felt like, okay, so now there's nothing they can do against me, and they went after me several times trying to destroy my reputation. I was like, I've been canceled before. There's nothing. You have nothing on me. You know the scene from Batman: The Dark Knight, where Batman holds the Joker and he starts smashing the Joker, and the Joker laughs and said, all your power, you have nothing against me.
Right, yeah.
You have nothing against me.
What leverage do they have?
What leverage, exactly. Yeah. So now because that's all they have. Yeah. They go after you, they get your money. It's like, I don't care about none of this anymore.
Right. Well, what about Allan? You haven't done hard time, right? In jail?
No, not in jail.
No. But he's on the Interpol red notice.
You are on the Interpol. Well, you're canceled from almost. So you and I share. You're banned from PayPal.
Yeah, PayPal, right?
YouTube. What about Shopify? Well, I don't know if you ever Shopify.
OnlyFans.
Oh, that's right. OnlyFans? That requires
Elon Musk laughed a lot.
Explaining, but good for you.
Yeah. So what happened was, first I was banned from YouTube, and the reason was ridiculous. I posted a video from C-SPAN, Trump explaining that he wants everything peaceful. Mm-hmm. And remember the first time he showed up?
Peacefully and patriotically.
Yes. Yeah. It was on after January 6th.
And that was a C-SPAN video, okay?
Right.
And the YouTube tagged that video a promotion of a criminal organization.
Just let this sink in for a second. YouTube banned a journalist in Brazil speaking Portuguese because he published the video of Donald Trump after January 6th in Brazil. YouTube
a video that was
from C-SPAN.
C-SPAN video.
Yep.
A state company of the United States.
Yep. We had that happen with us too.
And by the way,
Brazil, why would they care about it?
About a U.S. election.
Is it about how comes that? Oh, it's to guarantee public safety. We don't want the video, like in Brazil.
In the video about Canel in Cuba asking to beat the riots.
Yeah.
In Cuba was on air.
Right. Yeah.
So it's totally political. So that was the first time we lost our YouTube channel. I won Google in Brazilian court. So my channel got back only in Brazil.
Let me guess, not monetized.
Not monetized. Yeah. And I won a case against Google in Brazil. So my channel got back only in Brazil, not outside of Brazil. And then I decided to cover the U.S. election. But before I decided that, I just came in Brazil. I was just coming back from CPAC. 2020, and de Moraes sees my house. My wife was pregnant.
Raided his house.
Yes, raided and see. Right?
At least at your house, they rang the doorbell.
No, ICE.
Yeah, ICE, different. But I'm just
Yeah, but not mine.
No, not yours.
No, the
they
Brazilian federal police actually raided his house
Right.
with rifles and at gunpoint with his wife pregnant.
My wife was pregnant, 9 months pregnant. And the second raid, Pedro, who was the womb of my wife, he was just born. I mean, I had 2 raids in between 2 months.
And were both of these raids predicated on that C-SPAN video?
No. This is about fake news,
Right.
inquiry in the Supreme Court in Brazil. And after that happened, I was talking to people in Brazil.
People are not going to understand that.
It's crazy.
It's very hard to unpack.
No, it's crazy because
But let me, in a nutshell,
Bolsonaro was president back then.
Bolsonaro was president, yeah.
Right.
But in a nutshell, the Brazilian Supreme Court, okay, Moraes was the chief, the rapporteur of this investigation. It's a court that opened an investigation against fake news in the country. So because of that investigation, that's the one that Elon Musk is now being investigated in Brazil.
Right.
Because of
He's
that.
in the same inquiry.
In the same inquiry, same probe. They opened this probe, it's the Supreme Court. So when he says, well, the Supreme Court raided, the federal police raided my house, they raided his house on orders of de Moraes on the Supreme Court.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know, Alito decided to start raiding someone else's house to investigate fake news, and there's nothing in the Brazilian law about fake news because
without trial, without indictment, nothing.
Right.
I never have been indicted or in a trial about fake news or something like that.
Right.
So they raided my house twice. I saw that Brazil was going down in the hill, in direction to the hell, and I say, okay, now I'm more decided to cover the U.S. election, and I was thinking about improve my company and to grow my company for the U.S. audience, 1.3 million followers. My channel used to be back then,
Right.
and when I started to do these things here in the United States, they decided to order my arrest. It's extradition, I'd say.
Extradite you?
Extradite, yeah. So arrest,
which the U.S.
extradite.
government denied. The
U.S. denied that.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, it is.
Take the small wins.
Department of Justice.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
We had an idiot mayor from Detroit who may or may not have killed hookers in the mayoral mansion with his wife, and then he landed in Texas, and he was surprised that he was arrested. I was like, you think they have to extradite you, Detroit to Texas? So I'm familiar a little bit with extradition laws, but I'm glad to hear that the Biden administration didn't grant it.
It's actually interesting. They sent, because Brazil made a big case out of it, there was a Russian asset.
Lula da Silva said to his partners and government people, the news says we have got some source from the government saying Lula da Silva wants to exchange Allan dos Santos with the Russian agent that the United States want.
It's such a bad trade. It's like Brittany Griner for the Merchant of Death. Like, what the? I don't care what your politics. That's not a good trade. A shitty basketball player.
It shows how much they wanted Allan.
Yeah.
They hate me a lot.
Yeah.
So then.
They hate me a lot.
Yeah.
Basically tried to end your life, but these are the waters we swim in, right? Sometimes it sounds outlandish or unbelievable to people. It's not to you because you've been through it. It's not to you because you've been through it. But there are people out there who are just like, oh, okay, this is drama. No, this happens. People are silenced. People lose their livelihoods. Wars were fought over significantly less. We are that frog in a boiling pot.
You have no idea how fast things collapse.
But I stood up and I fought back. For example, when the day they raided my house, I went to in front of the Supreme Court building and I put my middle finger on it and I took a picture.
Good for you.
And when de Moraes ordered my arrest, I went to the Disney in front of the Mickey Mouse and Minnie and all that stuff, and I say, "You want to know where I am at? You can ask Mickey, Minnie, You can ask.
It comes full
I
circle.
wonder
back to
why
this.
they hate him so much.
Now you know why they hate me.
I appreciate it. Well, also,
We need to, because once you comply with fear, they go forward.
right.
And they go after your friends and after your family and so forth. You need to stand up and say, get the f*** out of here.
Yeah.
You're fighting against a man, a father of a family. I'm not your bitches and the people you are used to yellow and they just kneel
Right.
in front of you. I'm not these kind of a bitch you are used to.
There are
deal with.
there are so many people both in the United States, and I will say in Brazil too. Being around enough Brazilians, what I've noticed is a lot of them have that sort of that they want to have that freedom mindset, but they just don't. There's a kernel of it, but they don't really know what's happening. A lot of Brazilians here in the United States, in my experience, and their eyes can be opened if you explain it to them. But it seems like a lot of Brazilians, at least here stateside, don't take a super active role, and it's kind of like, it's not an interest of mine, which obviously is a lot of Americans, but that's been my experience.
But in Brazil works the same. I mean,
Yeah.
if you are in Brazil, you don't know anything about Argentina election or politicians.
But he means Brazil.
I mean, Brazilians don't. Brazilians I know, haven't taken a
it is a
huge interest in
domestic
Brazilian
thing.
politics.
Yeah.
But it's a domestic thing.
Right.
What Paulo said in the beginning is very important. People, I mean, let us put it this way. Every Brazilian, every American, every Canadian, they have their own domestic problem to solve.
Right.
And because we are not internationalists like the Marxists, because to be a Marxist, you need to be internationalist.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So we care about our country, but if we care about our country and we do not pay attention to what is going on outside, you are the next
Right.
victim of the Marxists because they're working together. So if our enemy is working together, we need to find a way to work. Not, I don't like the word working together, but we need to find a way to know each other and see what our enemy is doing, because the enemy is the same. The problems are the same. I mean, what they are doing against Brazil, what they are doing against Argentina, what they are doing against Chile, they are doing against the U.S. people too. So if the American people see what is going on in the United States, they could understand better how to solve their own problems. For example, I'm going to put one problem here that's very common among Americans, and I saw this movie before.
Obesity.
In Brazil. What?
You
Yes.
said one problem very common. I thought it was obesity.
Obesity now. So, for example, communists, they basically do not create problems. They master how to see a problem inside the society, and they boost the problem.
Right.
So they are not the creator of the problems, because what kind of discussion problem you have in North Korea?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
None. Because people over there cannot complain, they cannot discuss, they cannot debate. So you just have this kind of a conflict in free countries, right?
Yeah.
So what communism does is a communist agent, he look at the issue, the problem, he pretend to help both sides and boost the problem to a certain point that would be unsolvable. You
Unless
cannot
the
solve the
government
problem.
steps in and that's now here's your savior.
Yeah.
And
doing it, they are very good at putting not disagreement. I mean, they know how to make friends fight against each other.
Right.
Like, for example, let us say in Brazil right now, we have people willing to go to the street, right, and protest against Lula and de Moraes. And some right-wing people are saying, no, this is not a good time to do that. We need to wait a little bit, because they are afraid, of course.
Of course.
And right-wing people are fighting against each other, and they do not know how they are being manipulated by the left.
Right.
And I see the same thing in the United States. People fighting against each other just because of this is a figure of speech, but I don't like your mustache, I don't like your beard, I don't like your hairstyle, I don't like the way you dress, I don't like the way you talk, and then they make a deal. they make a big deal on this stuff.
Yeah.
While the enemy is getting stronger.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. The enemy getting stronger. So Lula has buddied up for people who don't realize, I think Americans can be removed from this a little bit because we have such a big country, right? And even then, if you go to sort of North America, you're still talking about the United States and people who are kind of ancillary, right? Where you are surrounded by a bunch of other countries where you either have to have alliances, or in some cases in South America, right, you have enemies. With Lula, he's buddied up with, people may not realize this, Brazil, most important country in South America, a lot of other dictators, right? That's something that people may not necessarily realize. So is it Venezuela? There's
Cuba,
talk
definitely.
about invading Guyana. Is that
Guyana, yeah.
Yep. And is that because of oil reserves, effectively?
Yes.
So what would happen, for example, that's Maduro, for people who don't remember, by the way. Would Lula be a supporter of Maduro, for example, in that kind of a conflict? Because that's the kind of a conflict that Americans would be removed from.
At least covertly.
Okay.
I would say now, and that's how crazy it is, and that connects to what I was saying in the beginning. I think if World War III happened now, Brazil wouldn't be on the side of the United States.
At all.
I don't want to say it would necessarily openly support the other side with China and whoever, but it wouldn't be on the U.S. side. It would maybe be neutral and helping China behind the scenes, but definitely wouldn't be
But if
pro-United
World War
States.
III broke out with Biden as president, I think he'd be on China's side.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
At least half of the Democrats would be on China's side.
yeah. No, I've said that about America too, where for the first time, at least in my lifetime, we're a flawed country, but in many ways, we could find ourselves on the wrong side of history. I mean, we find ourselves on the wrong side of history in mutilating and transitioning children. We find ourselves on the wrong side of history of kneecapping people who are protecting their own citizens who've been kidnapped and raped. When you're talking about it, we're on the wrong side of history when you look at propping up corrupt governments. And I'm not saying that Russia in any way is noble, but I'm saying if you look at the history of Ukraine, what we've done in the United States.
But they use that.
Right, they use it.
They use it, and they say, look how crazy these guys became. We're the good guys.
Right.
We're the good guys. We're not mutilating our children. We know the difference between men and women. We don't allow drug addicts having supervised heroin taken like they do in New York.
Right.
So the world used to be like that. You used to be able to look at America and see, well, is that the model I want to follow? Or look at the Soviet Union and see, well, is that the model I'm going to follow?
Sure.
And the U.S. used to be the free world, so everybody look up to America.
Right.
Now, if you're in Brazil and you look up to America, you look at, is that the model I want to follow? No,
Right.
maybe no. Maybe I want to follow the Russian or the Chinese model. It's less freedom, but look at what all this freedom did to the United States.
Right.
So it's and all that's done on purpose.
Right.
All these, it's a fact. You can read The Naked Communist, 1958. And you see everything was planned to happen this way. Let's destroy the family. Let's destroy church. Let's destroy society. Let's take over the unions. Let's take over the media outlets. It was all planned.
Right.
So nothing that's happening in the United States is by mistake.
Right.
It's not that they were lucky. They infiltrated agents, the Soviet Union infiltrated agents. To this day, the crazy environmental propaganda, we have enough evidence that Russians supported a lot of NGOs in the United States and in Europe with this crazy environmental agenda. Mm-hmm. And the Chinese did it well. How many U.S. university woke programs are funded by China, directly or indirectly?
Right.
So,
and do you know who the biggest funder, the biggest foreign entity, the biggest foreign funder of American Education Institute, do you know who it is? It's Qatar. Qatar, it's not even close.
wow.
Yeah, they have. You want to say that they share our values? That's the problem with the whole hold hands, we are the world. I talk about this all the time. It sounds nice, but we are not the world. The world has been at war since the beginning of time. There is nothing virtuous about saying we are the world. Well, hold on a second. The world includes child sex trafficking, and not only legal, but mandated in certain places, right? Child brides. Like the world is an evil, dark place, pardon my language, but to drive that point home. So to say we are the world is to say we're tolerant of the deepest, darkest evils that exist in the world. And I don't think that people give that a lot of thought, and it brings me to another point. So Brazil, okay, this is a tough pill to swallow. But you also see, my personal favorite, Malay, right? When you talk about Argentina.
It's our favorite too.
Yeah, is it? Okay. I forget the name of in El Salvador.
Bukele?
Yes, yeah, exactly. I was just speaking with a lady, a teller at the bank about him. She was El Salvadorian, and she said, oh yeah, we're big fans. Is there, outside of Brazil, is there potentially a red wave? And would that kind of let's say, alliance be enough to stop someone like a Lula and Maduro if they were to become an alliance? Like, is there enough to stop the storm that's coming?
Well, there's a book I like a lot. It's called National Populism: The Revolt Against Liberal Democracy. It was written by two leftists, like semi-liberal guys, professors.
Leftists.
Yeah, it's like leftists. Yeah, but the book's very good, and they say, well, what's going on in the world right now is that people were just fed up with this so-called liberal democracy. When you see all these big corporations making billions of dollars, and you see all these people in power getting away with stuff and doing whatever they want, and you see all these bureaucrats that we don't elect making rules that change our lives. That was true in Europe, and that the regular people revolted. You see all the people, the blue-collar workers, the farmers, they were like, we don't agree with that.
Right.
And these guys are getting away with stuff, and they're getting richer and more powerful, and we have no say in our own lives.
Right.
So they revolted. And you see that starting in 2015 with the Brexit in Europe, and you see the Donald Trump in the U.S., and you have Macri in Argentina before Milei, and you had, of course, Bolsonaro in Brazil, and a bunch of populist conservatives won. What happened after that? Well, after that, the left said, well, it looks like we're not going to win elections anymore. There's something going on that we didn't notice, because we used to control the media. We used to control Hollywood. How come they're winning elections? Oh, well, that's because of social media. So they started to do two things. One was, well, let's censor conservative speech.
Yeah.
And let's try to influence the electoral process as much as we can. And then you had COVID. And during the pandemic, you saw all the liberties like disappear. You had tax. It's like you have taxes, like keeping people in their homes.
Yeah, I was going to say not enough of a fight put up by American conservatives. Many people had shows.
It took some time.
Yeah, they were broadcasting from their basement. I had conservative people out there call me, because we started doing 2-a-days. We did Mug Club Quarantine, where we did 2 shows a day as opposed to 1.
I remember that.
And I had people call me up behind the scenes and say, you really shouldn't do that. It's yours. But this is why we lose, because people like you make us seem crazy. I'm going, I make you seem crazy by... I had a conversation with everyone at this office, and I said, look, this is happening. I know that some of you guys are removed from this, but this is how we keep the lights on. And if you don't want to come in, we will keep you on staff as long as we can. But I'm going to come into work. Who wants to come into work? And I want to do 2-a-days. Everyone said, yep, let's go. So for me to get those calls and for me to get those texts from other conservatives, either broadcasting from their basement or producing from staying at home, that changed me. It fundamentally changed me, because that is that's something that I kind of can't take. I expect the left, I was a Scorpion when you met me, but I thought we were all on the same team, and we weren't. That really only happens because you still have half the country who really should, or they do at least believe what we believe, but not the people who carry their mantle. There shouldn't be a lockdown in Texas.
I mean, we were in Florida, so it was a little bit better. But even in Florida, we had like a little less than 2 months of lockdown.
Right.
So what happened on that is that, well, a lot of small business never recovered. Never. A lot of people lost their job. You had a lot of family problems with drugs, with alcohol, psychiatric problems as well.
Sure.
Kids that never got the proper development, and they will never recover from these years.
You don't get those formative years back.
Exactly. So you had and people, instead of getting less revolted with the, let's call it, establishment, they got more revolted.
Right.
And now, if you look at what happened in the elections in Europe, it's mind-blowing.
Right.
Because Europe is the place of leftism.
Right.
It's like everyone in Europe is secular, leftist. They control everything. And even controlling everything, they managed to lose the European election for the parliament. And you're seeing more and more conservative right-wing parties winning in Europe. Of course, you had Orban in Hungary, but you had Meloni in Italy.
Yeah.
You had the Chega in Portugal. You had the Vox in Spain, and it's just like
Yeah.
the conservatives were gaining space there. And if you look right now, you have in Argentina Milei, which became a rock star. Bukele winning with like 90-something% of the ballots.
Right.
And if you look at all the polls, Bolsonaro, even he can run legally. He can't run for president anymore.
Yeah, of course
But
not.
he's still, because they
know he'd win.
exactly. He's winning all the polls.
Just look at this. I keep
And in
saying
the
this.
US.
If Donald,
If Bolsonaro goes to the street and if he calls people to go to the street, that's going to be massive.
Last time he did it, we had 1 million people
right.
on the streets of São Paulo. That was like a couple of months ago.
Their argument is because the leftists want to destroy sovereignty in every country. The globalist left, they want to destroy the sovereignty in every country. They want to. They have this revolutionary idea that they know better what people want.
Right.
So they have this kind of idea that people are so dumb and so childish, they cannot decide what is good for them anymore. So they want to destroy the sovereignty and make they keep the name country, but it's not a country anymore. It's not a nation, and so the change that have been made in their perspective, and I'm saying that because we need to discuss about it to American people. They need to understand that they don't care what people think anymore.
Right.
They don't care if you see the grass is green. They don't care about it because they want to build another world.
Yes.
The new world order. They really want it.
Of course they do.
They want a different world, different laws, and different everything. And the leaders, the political leaders nowadays that are obeying the globalists, they are saying if the Congress decides something and the UN decide another thing, we need to apply what the UN decided, not what the Congress decided for their own people. We need to pay attention on it because there is no other country in the world that has let us say, a medicine or remedy for that, unless United States.
Right.
And this is because of the United States Constitution. Paulo used a figure of speech that I love. The virus is the same. The virus that they apply in Brazil, United States, in every country, the virus is the same. And the time they have been applied this virus is the same too. But the problem for the leftists, the United States immune system is way stronger than any other country.
Right.
Why? Because the United States Constitution was never repeated. Not even French Revolution. If people think, oh, French Revolution started after the United States and then it's a good republic. It's not at all.
No. Those are people who haven't really studied the French Revolution and its results, right? They've seen Les Miserables and they go, right, you have no idea what it actually is.
Paul was saying democracy could be, what did you say? Democracy would be gone or dead?
Yeah, it could be over.
Well, for me,
we had a good run, but
yeah, for me, I hate the word democracy because words can be used in different sense, different meanings. And the United States doesn't have the democracy word in the Constitution for a reason. Right. And republic is the word. And republic is not the opposite of monarchy, by the way. I mean, if you go back to the scholasticism text or even the modern time, and I mean, I'm talking about 18th century or 17th century, the word republic was used for the common good. And the United States is the only one country in the world that people put a finger in the face of government. You can't do this, you can't do that.
Right.
And we do not have that kind of constitution in other countries. So in order to reproduce the revolution the communists or the liberals are doing in the whole world, the United States is the only one place that can fight back. So what Paulo said, and people here in the United States need to understand that if this country, the only one country that has the medicine, the tool, the way to fight back, if this country falls, there is no other place.
Right.
So, and then we need to go to Elon Musk and say how to go to Mars.
Let me ask you before we go on, because we will go to Mug Club too. But give me some examples of the American left in Brazil, because you touched on that, and I do have just a handful of notes here. But like the Sao Paulo reform, and for example, like the road to socialism, where these sort of experiments, specifically the United States, the American left, sticking their oar in Brazil.
Yeah. So São Paulo's Forum was created back in 1990 by Fidel Castro and Lula da Silva. They created this forum to make the socialists
It's
in
a meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a meeting in South America to make the communists not depending that much from Russia anymore.
Right.
So Castro and Lula, they had this kind of dream that we can do what Russia is giving up to with the perestroika and all the stuff. I think your audience will understand perestroika, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so
Also, that the Russians were banging too many of their Cuban women. That was probably part of the motivation.
Yep.
Smart of them.
Yeah, they were showing up. They were going like, "Oh, what is this?"
and when they
Cubans are way better than Russians.
Yes, generally.
and when they created this organization, this criminal organization, they want to work together with the drug dealers and taking over the bureaucracy inside every country and taking over of the countries through election, not through army and revolution anymore. So not through violence, but through corruption. And when they did it, they have been helped by a lot of socialists in the United States.
Right.
So you mentioned on road socialism. Road socialism is a program written in the Communist Party of the United States. So if you go, don't believe in me, go to the Communist Party of the United States program called Road Socialism, and that was way before Macri and before Donald Trump, and they named the countries that could turn into right wing. They say Nazi. Right. So I'm translating. Yeah. So they knew that something could happen in Chile, Argentina, and Brazil. Again, the ABC countries. Yep. And in order to stop the right-wing people, they knew they need to have the help from the socialists in the United States. So this is why Bernie Sanders personally named the officer that could be in the U.S. ambassador in Brazil. So Bernie Sanders, he did it, and he
also a big supporter of Chavez. People need to remember Bernie Sanders.
Yeah. He's a fully communist.
Yes,
and he has connection in Brazil. All the leftists
Very well connected.
Very well connected.
Bernie Sanders is.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders.
Okay.
What Paulo was trying to do in the U.S. Congress to put a light in the Brazilian situation, Brazilian tyranny, he was facing a hard time to talk with the Congress right-wing politicians in the United States because they have no clue about anything in Brazil. But 1 week before,
they don't really care. Other than, believe it or not, other than Chris Smith, no one even wanted to listen. Now they do a little bit. It's better.
Good.
But the Chris Smith, which is a congressman from New Jersey, a Republican, he was the only one that, since the beginning, was like, "Oh, this is a serious human right issue," and he started gathering a little bit of support. But I think the point Allan is making is that the Brazilian left, they come to the U.S., they get meetings immediately with Bernie Sanders, senators. They get resolutions approved in Senate. It's like they get red carpet treatment in the United States. The Brazilian conservatives, I came with a delegation of 20 Brazilian congressmen to the Capitol, and we couldn't get a hearing with a single congressman from the Republicans.
It doesn't surprise me. I wish it did, but it doesn't.
Exactly. So what he's saying is that the left has all the connections in place. They support, Soros is funding all the left's initiatives in Brazil. We don't have any billionaire, not even fracking billionaires, supporting conservatives in Brazil.
Right.
At all. It's again, because of this
and by the way,
difference on
to
philosophy.
Frame what they want to do against us, Brazilian press said that Paulo and I were working together with Elon Musk to destroy Brazilian democracy. You know, it's crazy because
they're doing it very poorly. Yeah. Elon Musk won't even remove the sanctions.
No, I not even have a Tesla.
No, you got some right.
Yeah.
But no, that's the thing is the right. And I will say this too. Kind of if this analogy is apt with the left, have you ever had someone in your family who's just a master manipulator? Someone who will constantly, and you'll notice with these people, they will be really close with someone 1 second, and then they're really close with somebody else, and they'll turn you against each other. And you'll see it within a family, like, why is she or he really close with my sister? And now they're no longer friends. Or my best friend, then they're no longer friends. And then 5 years later, all of a sudden they're best friends again. The left is really quick to, a potential ally. All right, let's use them. That's where globalism comes in handy, because you can now, since you don't care about your own national interests, right? A globalist in America has the same problem as a globalist in Brazil. Globalist in Brazil doesn't give a shit about Brazil any more than the globalist in America cares about America.
True.
So everyone else outside is a useful tool. And today, that could be Argentina, that could be Venezuela. Tomorrow, maybe Chile. Maybe tomorrow it's Canada. Because you have no loyalty, you don't care. And so you can use all of these alliances that are interchangeable to manipulate, because your true north is not some kind of national interest. And it is kind of an anchor.
And they make a lot of money in the meantime.
And they do, yes. And there's no anchor to almost an albatross around the neck of conservatives, because they do ultimately have to, if they are true conservatives, come back to caring about the nation. And so that does cut out a good portion of the globe as an ally that you can just use and manipulate.
You know who was number 2 ally in the U.S. Senate of Lula?
Of Lula?
Yeah. It was number 1 was Bernie Sanders. Number 2 was Bob Menendez.
Oh.
Same guy that was, it's like...
I used to debate his daughter every single weekend on Fox News.
Really?
His daughter Alicia, we had a segment.
Oh, yeah. Is she her daughter?
Yeah, Bob Menendez's daughter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then they told her she
Democrats has a lot of parents and
TV. And then one day they said she doesn't want to do it anymore.
Okay.
So the segment was gone. I was like, well, can we find someone else? Like, I don't know, maybe.
Maybe she got some gold bars.
Yeah, exactly. She could be. It's funny that a Democrat was the one. It's usually the Republicans who are selling gold. But I do want to continue this on Mug Club. Allan dos Santos and Paulo Figueiredo, just before we go, let people know where to follow you. I know your show is on Rumble, and you have 2 X's. We'll put those up. Allan, best place for people to support you.
Yes, it's on my Twitter, on my X.
You still say Twitter sometimes.
Yeah,
I know
No,
that.
you would have to say X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I would like to just make a statement here.
Yes.
I passed 3.5 years without my daughter, my family, waiting them here because of the tyranny I faced in Brazil. If the U.S. want to understand how dangerous it is to become Brazil, and if they think that never would happen to them, be careful, because what they are doing here in the United States is entirely what we face in Brazil. We are just like Back to the Future stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like, guys, be careful. What happened in our country, it is happening here, and we see every single move is the same. Mm-hmm. Every single move. So be careful.
Brazil's a cautionary tale.
Yes.
The U.S. left is as crazy as the Brazilian left. The only difference is that the immune system in the U.S. is stronger than in Brazil.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. And coming from Canada, I've lived that far too closely, where I tell people a different way of saying that. I say, look, don't look to what the left does in this country. Look to what they would do if left completely unfettered. You see Canada. You see places where there were actual quarantine camps. You see Brazil. Don't look to what the left can accomplish with the immune system we have. Look to what the left can accomplish in this country if they successfully do away with the immune system. And we already have sexual mutilation of 6-year-old boys and girls. And we already have funding of foreign wars. And we already have elections that at the very least are not transparent. We already have that right now, and they do not have the unfettered power that they want. So it is...
and it's changing fast.
Yeah. It's more fragile than people realize.
Way more fragile.
If they took the
I've been in
Supreme
this country for 10 years.
They take the Supreme Court, it's gone.
It's gone. The Supreme Court is it's really, really important.
Yeah.
And
or
I've
if they
been
win
in
the
this
next election, and if they were to win it, steal
Yes.
it, and then pack the court and add seats, it's the same.
Exactly.
Net result is the same.
It's the same.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. Well, I want to continue this on Mug Club, and it's not just a cautionary tale, right? It could end up going the right way of history with Brazil and the United States. Right now, it's a little bit tough, but Malay's fun. He looks like a Dickens character.
I'm an optimist.
Yes.
I'm an optimist. I think Donald Trump will be elected, and I think the world will, for the first time, fight back the establishment a little bit.
Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I know that he would if the Constitution was still worth the paper that it's printed on today. Donald Trump wins. We all know that, and the left knows that. It's kind of like, and we'll talk about this fighting and jiu-jitsu, and we'll get there because you're wrong. But you don't just look to what the fighter is.
Right here, right now, before my club, with everyone watching, we have twice my size, and I'll still beat you.
Click right there on Rumble to continue watching on Mug Club. YouTube, piss off. You can see, look, he's on his phone. He's one of those guys.
Yeah, he is.
He can't help it.
Yeah, he's addicted.
You know what? They should put you in jail.
He's
publishing fake
addicted
news.
to TikTok. You know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What?
Want to see a bunch of unicorn trannies dancing?
Yeah.
Not even know how to use TikTok.
You don't even know how to use it. You just watch and enjoy. You just said that you like whiskey. You're kind of learning to like bourbon. Bourbon and rye is people think of rye as Canadian, but distinctly American, because what happened is they came to the New World. They had the surplus of rye and corn, and back in the day, they had to give it to the king. And this was kind of pre-modern refrigeration methods. So like, well, we have all of this this corn and this rye. What do we do? You can do whatever you want. So this, I guess it's going to be beer, and let's distill it. That's the best way to preserve it. And so that's how bourbon came to be.
Really?
In the United States. Yep. And
I used to be single malt only, but and it's like because of the American conservatives, they drink a lot of bourbon.
Yeah.
And I started to acquire a taste.
Single malt scotches, you mean?
Yeah.
Gross.
It's delicious.
Tastes like Europe. What is it you said you wanted?
Good Europe.
Well,
Scotland.
The standards people don't realize
like,
for Scotch is not really the same as they can use any barrels for Scotch. They mostly use old bourbon barrels.
Yeah.
Bourbon has to be new American oak alligator charred. Specifically, it cannot have been used to be actual bottled and bond bourbon. Like we have actual regulations in Scotch. They're just like throw it in the bourbon barrel. It's fine. Put it over the peat.
Well, it tastes better.
Oh,
anyways,
what you're talking about. But you're from Brazil.
Yes.
So you are also a little spoiled. The ladies.
yes.
Yeah. Do you come stateside and like throw up in your mouth a little when you see the land whales here? Do you have as many fat ladies in Brazil?
We're starting to get.
Ugh.
Not that much.
We're
The
starting
United
to get
States
Brazil.
is everywhere.
Then is it really worth saving?
You go to Disney World, it's like, oh my God, this country is going to die in 30 years. Nothing matters. Everyone's going to have a heart
How do you know
attack with
who's Brazilian,
diabetes.
who's not?
Yes.
You can tell the difference. But Brazil is getting a real obesity problem as well because people are eating more and more industrialized food.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be that way, but it's becoming similar.
I mean, it's a good problem to have in comparison to starvation, right? I used to have in stand-up, I used to have a joke about the problem of overabundance. But the thing is, I was saying if people want to be obese, that means choice. That's a good problem to have. The problem now is the left has declared obesity healthy, right? They go, oh no, fat is just as safe and beautiful.
And pretty.
Yeah, and pretty. Yeah. And it's really, it's easy to say healthy because a lot of Americans, they're not doctors. Like, I don't know, I guess it can be healthy. Pretty? They go, no. No, you can lie, but.
Well, but pretty is subjective. Healthy is objective, right?
Right.
Pretty, and I think pretty is definitely, there's objectiveness and beauty.
Right.
But you can claim that, well, back in the days, fat people were considered pretty, and this is a concept that varies between cultures. But healthy is not. If you're having diabetes,
right? But it's the lived experience.
It's diabetes. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what you think.
No, you're right. But even then, bigger women, it was like, the truth is, women always say, like, these unrealistic beauty standards. I go, okay, oh, right. Let's look at this for a second. You look at the cover of a woman's, like an average woman's magazine, or you look at the female stars out there. It's perfectly attainable. It's a woman who maybe does some yoga. You look at the men's health magazines, it has to be steroids, diuretics, a tan. You have to be large, muscular, and six-pack. You look at Kate Upton, she just has big knockers. But she doesn't have to get on a diet plan. She just has to eat moderately healthy. I mean, name any female starlet right now, any single one. You're like, yeah, that doesn't require an unhealthy lifestyle to attain this beauty image. So I would say that it's actually harder.
I thought you had a six-pack.
Me?
Oh, no, that's Ryan Reynolds. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's true.
It looked like Ryan Reynolds, but without the six-pack, right?
could beat him up if that helps. I mean, he'll cry into his pile of money. No, right? I will take the comment. He's a good-looking man. I'll quote my friend Chael Sonnett. 6-packs are for drug addicts and teenagers. Okay. They're not the sign of a
gay
male.
people have a lot of 6-packs.
They do. They do have a lot of 6-packs.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know how many calories fellatio burns, but apparently it's quite a bit. But jiu-jitsu. I mean, you were talking about this too. So you're a purple belt. You've been jiu-jitsu a very long time.
Yep.
And it must bother you that an American right now, Gordon Ryan, is the best ever at no-gi jiu-jitsu. Your floor.
According to you, right?
According to all of the wins, the records, he hasn't been beaten at black. This is one thing I will say. It's like Brazil gave the world the UFC. This is true. It gave the world the UFC. It changed. Brazil, and specifically the Gracie family, have revolutionized combat. Even if you're not interested in the sport, have revolutionized combat more since 1993 than all of humanity before it. What bothers Brazilians is that the Americans took it and got better at it.
It's like airplane, right? You create catapult and you call it airplane.
Yes.
Because in America, people say the first airplane was here.
Right.
It was a
Wright
catapult.
Brothers.
It wasn't airplane.
You have planes in Brazil, correct?
We
created that.
We came up with planes.
It's like Alexander Graham Bell was Canadian who created the phone, but the truth is he needed America.
He what?
You needed America to actually make it happen.
We were flying over Paris when you guys were still catapulting
you were in a trebuchet throwing Wright brothers at.
No, we were actually flying. The Wright brothers were catapulting. Look, Americans are great in improving stuff. Yeah, I'll give you that. But in terms of jiu-jitsu, I think you guys are still number 2.
Well, how is that? I mean, all Brazilians train in the States, like the best ones. Now, their camps are in the States, most of them.
Right, with Brazilian professors.
Well, some of them.
But most of people go to schools with Brazilian professors, Brazilian teachers.
Okay, make the case to me that, by the way, Gordon Ryan, so I want to hear your case beyond the fact that he has more wins.
No, he's great.
Better record than anyone, and he's beaten, by the way, every single Brazilian world champion
Why
he's ever
doesn't he go
faced.
to UFC and beats everyone there?
Well, we're talking about jiu-jitsu right now.
Well, that's a definition of jiu-jitsu. That's what I mean. Jiu-jitsu, for me, is what Ali Gracie used to do. It's what Royce Gracie used to do. It's what Riggs and Gracie used to do.
Yeah.
They used to fight anyone, any weight, for any time necessary, and they used to beat them. So that's jiu-jitsu. BJJ, well, it's an expression of jiu-jitsu, but it's not the only one. And I mean,
well,
if you're talking about no kimono, BJJ with rules, yeah, you're probably right. But if you're talking about real original jiu-jitsu, the Ali Gracie stuff,
then it would be an American wrestler and boxer who would win.
I don't know.
The
about
UFC,
that. UFC proved you wrong.
Well, it did initially, but now you're looking at. I mean, it's amazing how well Americans do.
Well,
compared to how small of a percentage of the population.
But it changed completely as well, right? Now you have so many rules. You have the time limit that you didn't have in the beginning. So, and to be fair, jiu-jitsu became way more popular. So there's none of these guys that don't know. You have weight categories, which makes all the difference in the world.
Yes.
And all these guys, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a wrestler from Dagestan or whatever, wherever these guys come from. You need to learn jiu-jitsu. You need to have at least the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu. So everybody learned jiu-jitsu. And the thing about jiu-jitsu is that if you know the basics, well, and you're stronger, you're going to win.
Yeah. You really are perhaps a right-wing nationalist extremist because you can't even give the credit to, like, you have to admit this. Americans are the only people who will cheer another country's athlete over their own if they like the person better. In Brazil, you will never hear the Brazilian crowd.
Do you watch Rocky IV?
Well, you can change. Would that be Brazil? If you can change, I can change. Everybody can make change.
Yes, Russians cheered for Rocky.
What about Spanish basketball?
Well, you might as well ask me about the price of tea in China. I don't give a shit. What's Spanish basketball? Sooner talk about the WNBA.
Keep going with your argument.
No, but in Brazil, like my friend Chael was there. They actually, he had to be helicopter. Chael Sonnen, yeah, he's been on the show many times. He was on my very first show.
I was on his fight with Anderson Silva when he lost.
Yeah, he did.
In Vegas. I was there.
He did. Was this the first one or the second one?
The second one.
Oh, the second one where Anderson cheated for 3 minutes straight.
Oh, come on. Anderson won beautifully.
What, in the second one? He held his shorts. He turned it into a hockey fight. I'm not saying Chael would have won if he didn't cheat, but
I think Chael's great, but Anderson's probably...
You know they're doing that boxing match coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, that does not go. I love Chile. I don't know if that goes well for him.
I don't know either, but I definitely want to watch it. It's going to be entertaining.
Yeah. But they will chant in Brazil. I don't remember what they were shouting, but I turned. He said, "Oh yeah, they're yelling. We're going to kill you."
Vai morrer. It means you're gonna die.
Yes,
you're gonna die.
And it's just automatically, if you're not Brazilian, they will yell it. Whereas in the States, they're all cheering Charles Oliveira, Brazilian, against the American guy because we sort of identify with the individual less than national pride. We're the only country that really does that. Brazil, they will back the Brazilian guy. And you have to do that in jiu-jitsu, despite the fact that Gordon Ryan is clearly the best no-gi guy ever. Whereas I have no problem saying that Roger Gracie is my personal favorite ever in the gi. I think, and he's a style of jiu-jitsu that I like best. But I don't think anyone will ever top him with what he did in that run, at World Championships, all basically cross collars and Ezekiel's. But Gordon Ryan today, I mean,
again, that's an expression of jiu-jitsu, which is the sports jiu-jitsu. I mean, if you go back to the original jiu-jitsu as a self-defense style of fight, a way of fighting, I think we're still the best.
Well, I definitely agree with you that it's become too.
You know who the Navy SEALs train with?
Well, I know that the Gracie, but the Navy SEALs.
No, Valente brothers.
They also did. Oh, I guess it's the Army that did Gracie combatives, right?
Oh, the Gracie teach.
Before that, they used to do Taekwondo with 50 pounds on their back. It's not like the military knows what they're doing.
Well, the Navy SEALs know what they're doing. I trained with these guys, and I don't want to look. You're afraid of pirates. I'm afraid of clowns. But you should be afraid of the Navy
No, I said
SEALs.
Parrots.
Oh, parrots.
Parrots.
Oh.
I'm not afraid of pirates. The Somalians, they're so malnourished. I can snap them like a broomstick snaps a parrot snaps a broomstick.
I thought more of a Blackbeard guy. So.
Yeah, it could be. But parrots freak me out.
Parrots. Yeah.
Parrots, because they're
Brazilian. They know jiu-jitsu.
Are they? That's okay. I'm American and know jiu-jitsu. I feel like parrots are more into what is it? What's the name of that silly dance fighting? Also capoeira. That's more.
Capoeira is dangerous, man.
Yeah, right.
You fight these people. There's like it
is
tough.
dangerous.
That whole bullshit backstory. It's what the slaves in Brazil would do. They would dance around the fire to fool the royalty, and then they'd throw a flip kick, and the royalty was like, "Ah, shit! I didn't see it coming."
No. They used to practice their fight, so the slave owners didn't know they were fighting because it was against the law to fight and to train martial arts. So they pretended they were dancing, but they were actually practicing their martial arts. And I don't think it's the most effective street fight technique in the world.
Of course.
But these guys are
0%.
Dangerous. But these guys are dangerous.
But for example, on the streets in Bahia, for example, if you put a knife in your feet, for example, and you don't see a move coming, they can just cut your.
What world do you live in? Where someone is putting a knife on their feet.
Welcome to Brazil, baby.
Yeah. You guys like your bladed weapons. We had a capoeira.
Oh, you have New Orleans. Come on.
That's true. Yeah, we have.
It's
Detroit.
the same.
I mean, we exported Detroit to Brazil. You guys like
New Orleans is just Bahia. It's just like Bahia. Of course, definitely.
Very much
because of all the witchcraft.
I went
as well. Same.
Yeah, of course. I went to New Orleans and I felt like I'm back to Brazil.
Really? The influence of the African culture.
Because everyone was telling me, be careful, New Orleans is dangerous, and it felt like home. I said, it's okay here, dude.
There's this aspect as well. New Orleans is but we're from Rio. We think violence is like, people say, well, this is a dangerous neighborhood. I'm like,
even Detroit.
Really? Detroit.
It's a little different. Detroit is a little different because, again, it's like 7 out of 10 murders go completely unsolved. No leads.
Oh, in Brazil, it's 95 out of 100.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Bitch, please.
Okay, all right, fine. That's fair. That's fair.
No, thank God. I mean, what you call dangers here, it's not even.
No, because we're not a third world country.
Yet.
But we had a capoeira class at my old jiu-jitsu school. Sometimes they'll rent out mat time. And they were doing it, and like one of those guys got a little too big for his britches. And he came in, he's like, I would do this, jiu-jitsu wouldn't work him. And he came into the class, and I immediately double-legged him.
Yeah.
I didn't hurt him because the guy didn't know. You know what I mean? And so it's a beautiful dance. But effective.
But a lot of the kicks that jiu-jitsu incorporated on MMA, some of them had capoeira influence. And there's this discussion if Hélio Gracie had some influence from capoeira on his fighting style. Believe it or not.
Really?
Yep. You should interview Pedro Valente. I keep telling you.
Well, when I find a video of Helio Gracie twerking and then jump kicking someone in the face, then I'll give it credence.
What's the name of it's Queixada. It's a type of sidekick.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a distance kind of finder.
Yeah.
Well, it is fascinating though to see that, and Brazil is a big part of that people don't realize they're living at a time where history will look back and go, yeah, fighting was one way throughout all of humanity, like hand-to-hand combat, and then the UFC happened because of the Gracies, and then it was a different way. And people today don't necessarily appreciate when that change happened. Like we've shown some clips, and you have to be careful because of Zuffa on the show. Like people even who are UFC fans today, they don't know. I go, no, there were no weight classes whatsoever. You could hit in the groin. There were people who were bitten. You could pull hair. They go, what? I said, yeah, that's how it was until it got regulated.
And interesting is that in the U.S., fighting was like all Bruce Lee movies, and you had the touch of death, and it was all choreographed. And it's a merit of the Gracie family, mainly Rorian, and all the Gracie family that really challenged the world and said, well, all you see in movies is all bullshit. And you know this better than anyone. We watch fights in the movies, and we're like, this is completely ridiculous.
Yeah, and then every now and then you see something, you're like, oh, wait, and then you find out the fight coordinator on one of the Lethal Weapons was like Horian Gracie. You're like, well, that's why that was in there.
Oh, or John Wick. John Wick has a lot of judo and jiu-jitsu stuff.
I had a fight scene in a film once, as an actor, and it was I was supposed to, the main actor, right, I throw him against the locker, and so they put a gator back on him, is what they call, where it's like a plastic shell to protect him. And it's okay, so you're going to be throwing him against the locker, and you're going to be kind of roughing him up. And the fight coordinator came up, and I learned this. He said, okay, stop. He goes, so you have some background in some kind of grappling or like real fight? I said, yeah, at this point it was judo. He goes, oh, okay. He goes, so that would work, right? That's what you want to do. He goes, in the film, you want to do the exact opposite. So in other words, where you want to keep things short, jab, right, tight, he goes, that doesn't register on camera. So you want to create the most ineffective arc punch possible, bring it back, cock it back from Louisiana so that the camera sees it. So what people see, they go, Bruce Lee, man. I go, he was literally fighting the wrong way for the camera. He had to. Because you know what you don't see? You don't see a quick piston jab like a Larry Holmes. You don't see it on camera. It doesn't look very showy. You see the Patrick Swayze Roadhouse. And I learned it that day. He's like, yeah, so everything that you do, right, keeping your elbows in, protecting yourself tight. He's like, I want you open up, puff out your chest, and wind up that punch and swing it around so the camera follows it. So there's what works on camera is the exact opposite in most cases. And now it's changed with things like John Wick and the kind of cameras we have now. But yeah, Bruce Lee, a lot of good theory, but would have gotten his ass kicked by a bantamweight today.
That's a good conversation for Daniel Bertorelli.
Yeah.
I don't know what those words mean.
It's a friend of ours who...
A friend of ours, yeah. He's the Brazilian guy that talks about movies and all that. He was a stuntman for Sylvester Stallone in Brazil.
Oh, so he's short.
No, he's actually big.
He's big.
But remember, Stallone is short, but he pretends he's big on camera. So this guy's actually big. So that's why he's the stuntman of a...
I remember. Did you ever have Planet Hollywood in Brazil?
Yeah,
the restaurant?
we did.
Good for you guys. So we had it in Montreal, and we had do you remember Judge Dredd?
Yeah.
We had the Judge Dredd Stallone uniform, and I was young. I was a child, and I saw it. I was like, that can't be the real outfit. I was like, he's like 5'2", and it's just the fact that they put it on display.
He's not 5 foot.
No, he's like 5'6".
He's like 5'9", I guess. I think so.
Unless this Judge Dredd...
Do you have a Jimmy to look it up? Like,
unless this Judge Dredd outfit was like the stunt double was a jockey, I doubt it. It was absolutely tiny. But no, so he was a stunt double in Brazil. Well, that's a little different though too. If he was doing like actual stunts like out of cars.
He did the stunt work for the Expendables movie, which was shot in Brazil.
Right.
The original one. It was a very good movie. Expendables.
Sure.
Yeah. Come on.
I mean, it was fun. I wouldn't say it's like it's not like
you don't miss the old action movies where Americans were the good guys and.
No, I do like
it
where
Russian
America
bad guy on the other
Well, that's
side.
fun, like Red Dawn, yeah.
Yeah,
but
Expendables is kind of like that.
Yeah, Expendables is fun to actually be able to cheer for the good guy. And there are still some good films coming out now. It's just it's pretty tough to find them. You have to everything is on home release these days, and so it's just
Dark web.
Well, no, I just mean everything is so free. Well, I go to your OnlyFans, but I can't now. I go and it says page not found. But no, it's just everything is so fractured. Let me ask you this, because we're talking about this in kind of American culture, right? You talked about that sort of being very common in Brazil, the movies.
Yep.
I've maintained that the biggest export that America has is actually it's our culture. That's the biggest export of American culture. So and I'm not saying that the greatest export of Brazil is their pop culture, because no one's sort of affected the world as the United States has.
True.
But culturally, what do you think Brazil's greatest contribution to the world is?
Nothing.
Jiu-jitsu.
That was soulless.
No, I mean, no.
Jiu-jitsu.
I mean when I say
Bossa
that.
Nova,
Because,
maybe.
no, I mean when I say that. I love my country. Okay?
Yeah, no, Brazil's
I'm
not
Brazilian.
relevant.
But the success of the revolutionaries are not politically.
Right.
It's culturally. They killed our writers. The literature in Brazil sucks for a long time already. And this is important thing to say. America is not strong because of dollar, because of money and capitalism. It's because of its literature.
Yeah.
It's because of the education that for a long time wasn't poisoned with the problem that we are facing right now. Of course, someone with my age listened to me saying, oh, the U.S. literature is good. You don't know what you're talking about in the United States. I know, because I have read books before that person who's listening to me right now, before you were born.
Right.
So the strongest aspect of the United States is literature, education, and the Christian people. That's the core. And they killed that in Brazil for a long time ago. When the United States were born in 1776, at the same time in Brazil, Marquis of Pombal was killing the last victim of the Inquisition, and was a priest. So the Jesuits were banned in Brazil and in Portugal, because Brazil was Portugal back then.
Right.
So our educational system that was still starting was, stopped. And then when Pedro I and Pedro II started to let us say, to build education in Brazil, everything stopped with the Republic again in 1889. And then when everything was starting, the dictator, the fascist dictator, when I say fascist, I'm not.
No, you actually mean it. Not like
Yeah.
a bunch of blue-haired lesbians say you're a fascist because
yeah,
you want to be
exactly.
able to drive an SUV.
Vargas was a fascist president, and he destroyed our education because he put everything centralized by the government. And I could keep going here just to tell you how our education system was being destroyed through the years, through the centuries. And in the United States, you did not have such a thing. And when I say in Brazil, we did not have this kind of thing because the revolutionaries, they knew they need to conquer our education. So back to the 20s and the 30s, they started doing it, and they got very successful in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
And you export what you produce. So the United States used to produce a lot of good stuff culturally, and now it produces, like, think about U.S. universities.
Yeah.
Until maybe 15 years ago, they were still producing relevant research and stuff like that. Now, what do they
Even it wasn't the majority.
even yeah, but what now? Right now, what does the U.S. universities produce? Hamas militants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's.
I mean, if you're going to pick uneducated idiots, right? If you, in other words, then the choice is the more attractive ones. So,
Yes.
Brazil.
I interviewed Dr. Peter Pry.
I'm not saying all Brazilians are uneducated idiots. I'm saying if the education system
They're
is
not
as
attractive, all
corrupt
attractive.
as that's what I was going to ask you. But I know this
but
is very
even-
important.
even
But is it a front? Do we only see like the good-looking ones in the United? Like, is it as high of a ratio of good-looking women in Brazil as we think, or is that a mirage? Is it a sexy mirage?
No.
No, we kill them, the ugly ones.
Well, I guarantee you, a few fascist leaders at some point, like, she have crooked teeth, yellow skin, she die. And now you end up with Miss Brazil.
Well, it's a natural selection. We killed all the women without big butts, and all of them have.
It's not natural selection. That's eugenics.
Yeah.
But good for you.
Yeah.
So I interviewed Dr. Peter Pry. He was a CIA in the United States. He that was the first person from the CIA that I have ever interviewed, and I was asking him, how can I recognize someone being Russian agent to destroy, trying to destroy a country? And he gave me an answer saying, we do not have agents anymore. because they are all stupid and idiots.
Okay.
And it's important because to understand that, because this is the level United States are experiencing right now, is the level that we experienced a few years ago.
Right.
I mean, not a few years ago, a few decades ago. So once you destroy education, you destroy everything.
Yep.
And the reason I do not see, let me put it this way, I do not see seriously the conservative movement in the United States fighting back the socialists and the communists. It's because they don't care that much about education. Few of them care about education. I'm not talking about using the word indoctrination. I do not believe in indoctrination right now, because indoctrination was back into the 70s and the 80s. Right now is destroying neurologically people how to think.
It's beyond indoctrination.
It's way beyond indoctrination. And we are still using the word to describe something that happened decades ago.
Right. Well, that's why, to me, I think, and you may think that I'm one of those people, but I think that the American education system is beyond saving. And so we have so many possibilities and alternatives that whether it's trade schools and educating yourself. In other words, I don't think you need to go to Harvard to become educated now. I think you become miseducated. You're better off learning everything. Like, for me, I was a very bad student. And I'm not a genius by any means, but I couldn't learn through, and this was in Canada, the public school system. I would sit, and then the entire day would go by, and I would say, "What
waste of time."
Just wasted my time. But then when I learned how to learn, it was like a hack where I realized, okay, bullet points I do better to read, long form paragraphs I learned better to hear and listen visually. If I was intensely interested, I could organize my thoughts, and I was able to retain information. But no one ever taught me that learning itself is something you kind of have to learn as a skill set. The skill set of learning, and that is intrinsically a little bit, it's unique to different people, but we don't have a system that treats it that way.
Universities were for that. The beginning of university was for that, to finish your formation as a human being,
right?
So you wouldn't like have a better understanding. You could learn the rest of stuff by yourself.
Right.
That's why when you do a master's, you only have someone that's orienting you, and same thing with the PhD.
Right.
So undergraduate programs was kind of like to train you on how to learn.
Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of the U.S. universities. I benefit enormously from Harvard and from MIT. Right. And I think you go there and the experience is amazing. Amazing. You're like, wow, this is great. You can learn so much. There's the environment is so well constructed, and that it's a shame that has been changing in the past few years. So I went to a Harvard meeting from students 2 years ago.
Gross.
Yeah, I know. I've been in worse places.
Yeah, like prison.
Like prison. Well, no, prison's better. But and we just like, it was a Harvard Business School meeting. It's like people coming from all over the world to spend one day, beautiful campus and all that, and they would like give us a lecture for the day, and it was all leftist propaganda.
Yep.
It was environment, like how to have the board of your company to be more inclusive, and have trans people on the board of your company, how to recognize genders in the company, climate change and all that. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You're having businessmen that went to Harvard Business School somehow from all over the world. They fly here to spend a day in the school.
Yeah.
And you're teaching them Marxism? Really?
Yeah.
And that's what's going on right now. But on the other side, you have people like Jordan Peterson coming up with his own university, and you have initiatives.
And universities mock him.
I was about to say that you still have in America the opportunity to build your own school.
Yes.
In all the countries you can't, because the state will put so many regulations.
Exactly.
And you cannot find a way out.
Right.
At all.
Is it very hard to homeschool in Brazil?
It is illegal.
Almost illegal.
It was close to that in Canada.
Technically, it's illegal.
It used to be illegal, completely illegal. Now it's legal as long as you teach the same things they're teaching in the public
right.
school.
Okay. So when you say education, you mean the ability to educate and the ability to learn, not the educational system. Because I think we probably agree that's beyond saving at this point. It has to be rebuilt anew somehow.
I think they're going to build naturally. I think a Harvard degree used to mean a lot because of the credibility that Harvard built for 250 years, right?
Yeah.
Well, or so. And now, in the past 15 years, it doesn't matter anything. Would you, I mean, think 15 years ago, would you like to send your kids to Harvard? Probably yes.
No.
No, 15 years ago, yes.
No.
Well, now definitely no.
Never.
Now definitely no. That's for sure. And at least is what I think.
Harvard?
No, now
Those guys are fags. No, I will tell you this. I had friends. Yeah, I had friends, good friends, who were Harvard law grads, summa cum laude.
Yeah.
And they some of them came from UT, and then I believe one went from maybe SMU and finished there. One was Boston College, which was also very good, and then Harvard. And they said it's the same books. They said it's the same books, it's the same course. And honestly, I had professors who were renowned in Harvard who couldn't teach their way out of a wet paper bag, but I was glad that I had their name on my class, on my class sheet, because people would be impressed. They said it wasn't any better there than when I was at UT pre-law.
I don't think people will be impressed anymore because they're ruining their reputation, and all they have is their brand. What you're saying is that the teachers are the same, but they have the brand. So a lot of it was, well, you're accepted in Harvard, so they have a good selection program. Well, that's that.
That's what it is.
That's gone. It's
Yeah.
like
It used to be the hard part was getting into Harvard.
Diversity now,
Yes.
not. So the selection process died. The quality of the professors has died. A bunch of not the brightest people in the world anymore. So it means in a few years the Harvard degree won't mean anything. So what will mean something? Probably the degree of the Jordan Peterson University.
I thought you were going to say hookers and blow.
Well, that always matters.
Yeah, it's a currency.
It's a currency.
Yeah.
More than dollars.
Yes, it does. People always need hookers and blow. And gold, if you're Menendez. I just find it funny when I heard that story. I just thought it was so funny picturing Bob Menendez like in a post-apocalyptic hellscape, like Mad Max, and he's trying to trade with gold. It's like they're just going to take your gold and rape you.
Isn't that the perfect timing for the advertisers that sell gold on Fox News to
I know
to advertise on the segment?
We've been trying to advertise on this show forever.
The gold people?
Just all different kinds of gold. And I don't have a problem with investing in gold as part of a diversified portfolio, right? The problem is when people say the Lord spoke to me and said, put it all in gold.
Yeah.
That wasn't the Lord, that was Sean Hannity.
But if you put money on gold a few years ago, you made a lot of money.
A few years ago, but if you put it in at the wrong time, you lost money.
Well, in the 10-year time span, you already make money.
Yeah, well, 10-year time span, you make money in the market no matter what, right? The issue,
Not in Brazil.
Well, no, I'm talking about, you talk about an S&P index fund. You will double your money every 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
The issue with gold that I have, and if there's a gold sponsor out there that wanted to say, hey, be responsible and invest partially in gold, I'd say fine. But they want you to go out and say, gold has never been worth nothing. Well, neither has Coke Zero. It doesn't mean that if you bought it at $1 a share and now it's worth 2 cents that you didn't lose money. And you see this a lot with conservatives, unfortunately. There are these companies or these sort of ideas that take root that aren't necessarily based in reality. Like gold, there's nothing wrong with it. When they sell it as a hedge against inflation, outside of Biden and Jimmy Carter, inflation is pretty stable between 2 and 3%. Not right now, but gold is very volatile, right? So you're looking at an inflation line and a gold line. It's not a good hedge against inflation. As part of many investments, sure, fine. But so we've had a lot of gold.
But what about electromagnetic pulse and destroying everything?
Yeah, the EMP attack. You know what's worth at that point is bullets and Everclear.
Yeah.
Everclear alcohol. And I'm not even joking about that.
No, I mean,
Everclear alcohol, because Everclear, when COVID happened, this is the first thing I did. Guy you met out there, I said, hey, Johnny Boy, if you stop by the liquor store, get me as many bottles of Everclear as you can. I don't know if you have it in Brazil. I don't know if it's an American thing. It's 180 proof. Yeah, Everclear. And there's Mohawk. It's just 180 proof alcohol. And the reason why was because I said, they're going to run out of hand sanitizer. And then sure enough, Fauci was saying, you can't make hand sanitizer at home. And I said, well, sure you can. What they mean to say is you can't make it out of vodka because it has to be 60% alcohol. Hand sanitizer, vodka is 40%. But if you have Everclear, you can dilute it. Then sure enough, all of the hand sanitizer that was made in they came from distilleries.
Right.
They came from foolproof alcohol. And I always say in case of emergency, have water, have emergency food, a way to heat it. And Everclear, because first off, it's antiseptic. You can use it just like isopropyl alcohol. You can also trade it with drunks, which will be important when people are addicts and the shit goes down. And you can also, I'm not even joking. It's why not have it? And then you can even use it to fuel
bullets.
Something.
Bullets is the main thing. Otherwise, they're just hoarding things for people that
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why if they show up, I'll be like, you know what? All right, okay, I'll give this all to you, but I bet it's been a while since you've had a drink. And hand us some Everclear.
I think the people about gold, they're talking about there's an aspect that changed completely in the world. I mean, from a monetary perspective,
Sure.
we're like living an experiment. It's like we're beyond waters that no one ever navigated.
Yeah, it's not real money.
It's like, nah. And it was never like this in the history of the world.
No.
So, and that's what they mean. Well, and that's why I have some gold. It's like,
some gold. So do I.
If
Some
shit hits
gold.
the fan, I have at least 2,000 rounds of AR-15, and
Those are rookie numbers. We got to pump those numbers up.
at least.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I always say if you need to buy ammo, it's too late.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I need to buy ammo. It's too late.
No, you're exactly right. It's funny when people are like, what if I have a gun in the house? I go, look, it's far better to have a gun in the house that is secured and not need it than to need
Yeah.
a firearm and not have it.
Yeah.
But they'll use an
Definitely.
argument like, I never want a gun in the house. Well, that's retarded. I mean, I don't know how to argue with someone like that. But the left just maintain. That's the argument from the left on guns. You're actually more at risk having a gun in the house. Bullshit. It's not true.
No, it's not true.
But they don't go into a
You
further
know when I
argument.
realized that? When I moved here, and one day I was by myself with my kids in the house, and I started hearing a very loud knock on my door. It's like, bah, 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 at 1 a.m. I was like, Jesus Christ, what's going on? I didn't have a gun. I had just moved to the U.S. I was like, I didn't have a gun. I was like, what am I going to do? No, I'm not going to go outside and fight jiu-jitsu with a...
No.
It's like, what do I do? And I didn't know what to do. And it was a laundry machine.
Oh, really?
But it made myself think, well,
Yeah.
what if he wasn't?
Right?
Right?
And also, that's how I know you're Brazilian, because instead of saying knock, knock, or boom, boom, you went, boa, boa, boa.
You know what boa is, right?
I can guess.
Yeah.
I think we went over this last time.
Yes, we did.
It's porra. Right?
Boa is different.
Oh, okay.
I taught you that.
Watch your mouth. You watch your mouth. What you say on this show, we're going to fight. There's reason for weight class.
Rated R, right? Can I say bad words?
What's funny is the show is not very profane. It's just we don't care about offending people. But it's not like you're watching a super blue show. But I let people say whatever they want. And I believe that people watching are adults. And even what's funny, you know what? When you do that, you realize that conservative Christians have a sense of humor. As long as you're not going out there deliberately just being vulgar for vulgar's sake,
Yep.
they understand that people talk and sometimes things are on the line. But all right, speaking of which, we've gone over time. Allan and Paulo, thank you so much for taking the time. And sorry, you were the odd man out on jiu-jitsu. Next time we'll talk about cigarettes.
Well,
Okay.
it's time for him to learn jiu-jitsu, right?
It is, yeah. There's no time like the present.
I know. Yeah, but I'm more for gun.
If you know what the truth is, it's a largely useless skill. It's really more for us. The truth is, when the shit goes down, the person you fear is the guy who can split a playing card at 200 yards, with his rifle, and not the guy who can throw on an inverted triangle. It's nice to have both. We'll see you tomorrow.